Hi everyone, Alex here. Today we're going to continue with our Revit multi-trade from 0 to 100. We have been talking about how to create a site using Forma. This is part 3. If you haven't watched parts 1 and 2, go ahead and watch them and come back. We're going to wrap up our site. We're going to include a survey point based on a southwest corner of our property where we have a real manhole that we're going to use as that reference. Then I'm going to show you how to scale an image and use it as a decal to get some context around our building. Let's get started. Let's go to Google, and here are reference streets, right? So Southwest 16th Avenue and Southwest 22nd Street. So let's see what we find around this area that's going to be a landmark, something that's not going to change. So I'm going to drop this little guy here, boom, and let's go to that intersection. Seems like there's a nice manhole here. There you go. So I'm going to make this guy my survey point. I'm going to minimize this. So I'm here in Google Maps, and it seems like it would be useful to capture a site image from it. So let's go ahead and do that. There are several ways of doing this. I'm just going to take a little screenshot of it. Don't want to spend too much time on this. This is not the scope of the video. And I'm just going to save this image. And now I'm going to measure a very characteristic distance. So for example, let's measure the distance from here to here. And now we record this distance. It's going to become handy later. Now that we have that distance, we're ready to bring in our image into our project. So before bringing that image, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a copy of this site plan. So I have one with the image and one without the image. So I'm going to rename this one as with Google image. And now I go to insert. And here you have two options. You can either link your image so that if the image changes in the future, it reflects in your model, or you can simply import the image. That's what I'm going to do because I don't think that image is going to change. So I'm going to select my image, click open. Now I'm going to place it here to the site. I'm going to stretch it out just a little bit to get in the ballpark. And now something important to notice is that these lines here are not perfectly horizontal. Right? If I do DL for a drafting line and I come from here, you can see that there's a certain angle there, right? So one thing you could do is measure an approximate angle there. So you go to annotate and measure an angle from here to here. It's approximately 2 degrees, 1.94. So that's just something that could be relevant to note. I'm just going to delete this line. And now I'm going to do a drafting line somewhere around here. So DL, I'm going to come from here. Notice that if I go straight horizontally, I'm not going to grab the middle of the road. So it might be good to just click in here, and now I'm right in the middle of the road. And now you would click on your image, go to scale, select your reference point, which would be this one here, then select your other line, and then without moving anything, trying to remain in the same direction, you give it that size of 543.57 feet and hit enter. Now I'm going to delete this reference line. I have no use for it anymore. And now I can grab my image and then move it from this point to this point right here. And you can see that my streets are aligning pretty decently. They're not perfect, but they're pretty decent. You can adjust that a little later. If you want to see this a little better, you can come here to visual style and put in wireframe. And now you can see that that intersection of those two streets is pretty accurate. And then you can see Coral Ways right here. That's not bad at all. So that manhole was right here. So I'm going to take this to my other screen. And now you're going to have to trust me that that manhole is this little spot that you see here. So I'm going to do a drafting line just so that I don't forget. And I'm going to bring my survey point. Remember, it has to be unclipped, otherwise it takes everything with it. There you go. So I got my survey point exactly where I want it. I'm going to delete this. And once we have our survey point determined, we don't want to mess with it. And now I'm going to go to a 3D view. And you notice that on 3D view, you don't see images. So typically, the worst case scenario, you would have an awful topography here, a very complicated topography. In my case, since this is Florida and this is pretty flat, it's not too bad. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a decal. And then decals are images that you can paste into any surface. Otherwise, you would have to define a material, assign that image to the material, slope it with whatever topography you have. It's a total pain. So in this case, I'm just going to bring in the image as a decal, and I'm going to put it on top, like some kind of tarp on top of it. Now we go to Insert, and here we can find our decal. So I'm going to go ahead and place a decal, and we're going to create a new one, and we're going to call it Site. And hit OK. Now we need to select our image. There you go. I'm going to accept all the defaults. Probably the only thing I want to change is the transparency here. So maybe 50%. I'm going to click OK. And now it's asking you on which surface you want to place that image. So you have to select a surface. And you know, maybe sometimes it's easier to create a floor and then paste it to that floor. In my case, I hope it took the surface at the bottom of this building. But in order to see that, I'm going to hit escape because the command's still active. And I'm going to change my visual style to realistic. And there you go. Here it is. Not bad. So let's take a look at it in top view. Not bad at all. You see our lines here. You see our streets. Beautiful. So now we can go to our 3D view. And then we have a pretty site. Luckily, we're in Florida, so that's pretty flat. I love Florida. Just a note to say that if you're watching this, you're not currently on our BIMitUp platform, so you may be getting only partial content. For exclusive BIMitUp training materials, you want to visit BIMitUp.com. Subscription to the website is free, with some paid and some free content. We're trying not to run ads here, so the creation of the content is made possible, mostly by the contribution and support of our subscribers. So if you enjoy what we do here, please consider becoming one. You can do so by joining our Patreon community at patreon.com/BIMitUp, or by simply scanning the QR code that you see on screen right now. And if you're really serious about your professional training, you can book some live training at BIMitUp.com or by simply scanning the QR code that you see on screen right now. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.